The first time it happened, I brushed it off as a fluke. You know how old houses are. They have their own personalities, their own quirks. My house, a charming but slightly decrepit two-story colonial, was no exception. It groaned, it creaked, and sometimes things just happened. But this felt different. I was 21, living alone for the first time, and frankly loving the freedom. That evening I was sprawled on the couch, binge-watching some sci-fi show, a big bowl of popcorn on my lap. My parents were out of town for the weekend, leaving me in charge of the family home. The sun had set hours ago, casting long, eerie shadows across the living room. Suddenly a distinct click echoed from the hallway. It was sharp, metallic, and unmistakable. It was the sound of the deadbolt on the front door sliding into place. I froze, my hand halfway to my mouth. Did I just hear that? I strained my ears, listening for any other sound, a footstep, a cough, anything to suggest someone else was here. Nothing. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and the faint chatter from the TV. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the door settled in its frame and the bolt just slipped. It sounded ridiculous even in my own head. I muted the TV. The silence that followed was heavy, almost suffocating. My heart started to hammer against my ribs. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding small and shaky in the large house. "Is anyone there?" Silence. Slowly I pushed myself off the couch, leaving the popcorn behind. My bare feet were silent on the hardwood floor as I crept towards the front door. Every shadow seemed to stretch and twist, playing tricks on my eyes. I half expected a figure to leap out from behind the coat rack. When I reached the door, my hand trembled as I reached for the lock. The deadbolt was fully engaged, firmly locked. I hadn't touched it since I came home from class that afternoon. A cold wave of fear washed over me. I quickly checked every window and the back door. All locked tight, just as I'd left them. The house was secure, but that didn't make me feel safe. It did the opposite. If no one got in, then how did the door lock itself? I spent the rest of the night with all the lights on, jumping at every creak and groan of the old house. I barely slept, my mind racing with terrifying possibilities. Was it a prank? A ghost? Or was I just losing my mind? The next day, in the bright, unforgiving light of morning, it all seemed a bit silly. I was a rational person. There had to be a logical explanation, a faulty lock mechanism probably. I made a mental note to call a locksmith on Monday and tried to put the whole incident out of my mind. That Saturday night I decided to have a friend, Sarah, over. There's safety in numbers, right? We were in the kitchen, attempting to bake a ridiculously complicated cake we saw online. Flour was everywhere, music was playing, and we were laughing so hard we could barely breathe. It felt normal. It felt safe. We needed an ingredient from the pantry in the basement. As I headed for the basement door, Sarah followed, still giggling about my flour-covered face. I opened the door, a heavy oak thing that led to a steep, narrow staircase. "I'll just be a sec," I said, flicking on the single bare bulb that illuminated the stairs. I was maybe 3 steps down when it happened again. Asterisk, click, asterisk. But this time it was louder, more aggressive, and it came from right behind me. I whipped around. The basement door was shut. I reached for the old-fashioned brass knob and turned. Nothing. I pushed. It wouldn't budge. "Hey, Sarah, very funny," I called out. "Open the door," Her laughter on the other side stopped. "What are you talking about? I didn't touch it." Her voice was muffled. "The door is locked," I yelled, my voice starting to panic. I jiggled the knob again, frantically. It was solid. "What? That's not possible," she said. "There's no lock on your side, and the lock on my side needs a key." She was right. The only lock was an old skeleton key lock on the kitchen side, and the key had been hanging on a hook by the fridge for as long as I could remember. I started to bang on the door. "Sarah, get me out of here. Use the key." I could hear her fumbling around on the other side. "I'm trying. The key is gone." "Liam, the key isn't here." That's when true, unadulterated terror set in. The key was gone. The door was locked from the outside, and I was trapped in the dark, musty basement. The single bulb overhead began to flicker, casting a strobe-like effect on the stone walls. My breath came in ragged gasps. I wasn't alone in the house, and whatever it was toying with us. "Okay, Liam, stay calm," Sarah shouted. "I'm going to call for help." I heard her footsteps retreating from the door, and then an even more terrifying sound filled the silence. The kitchen deadbolt sliding shut. Asterisk. One by one I heard every lock in the house engage. It was like the house was sealing itself, trapping us both inside. Sarah let out a scream from the kitchen. "Liam, it's locking everything." I was powerless, stuck in the basement, listening to my friend's terrified cries. The flickering bulb above me finally gave out, plunging me into absolute darkness. My own scream caught in my throat. I could hear something else now. A soft, dragging sound from the far corner of the basement. It was slow, deliberate, and it was getting closer. I backed up against the door, my hands scrambling for the knob that I knew wouldn't turn. The dragging sound stopped. The air grew heavy and cold, and then a whisper right beside my ear. It was raspy, ancient, and it wasn't Sarah's voice. It said a single word. Mine, I don't remember much after that. Just flashes of overwhelming fear. Sarah told me later that after about an hour of terrifying silence from the basement, all the doors in the house unlocked at once, just as mysteriously as they had locked. She wrenched open the basement door to find me huddled in a corner, unresponsive. We never figured out what happened that night. The locksmith I eventually called found nothing wrong with any of the locks. The old key for the basement door reappeared on its hook a week later, as if nothing had happened. My parents, of course, thought we were being dramatic, that we'd had too much to drink, but Sarah and I knew the truth. I moved out a month later. I couldn't stand being in that house alone, always listening, always waiting for that telltale asterisk, click, asterisk. Some houses have quirks, yes, but mine had something else. Something possessive. Something that didn't want to be alone. And it knew how to make sure you stayed. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever had a creepy experience in your own home, let me know in the comments below. Stay safe, and don't forget to like and subscribe. College was supposed to be the start of my new life, a grand adventure. My dorm room, number 203, was small but cozy. It was everything I had dreamed of. Next door was 204. On the very first day I heard them. Laughter, music, a group of people having a good time. I figured I had some really social neighbors. I knocked on their door a couple of times, wanting to introduce myself, but no one ever answered. The sounds just kept coming from inside. Days turned into weeks. The party in 204 never seemed to stop. Every night, without fail, the music would start. The talking would get louder. It was like a constant social mixer that I wasn't invited to. I complained to my AR senior named Alex. He gave me this weird look and said, "Room 204? That room's been vacant all semester. There was a maintenance issue, something with the plumbing. No one's assigned to it." I thought he was messing with me. "That's impossible," I told him. "I hear people in there every single night. It's loud." Alex just shook his head, looking a little pale. "Look, if it really bothers you, I can check it out, but I'm telling you, it's empty." He promised to have campus security do a walkthrough, but nothing ever came of it. The sounds continued, and I started feeling like I was the only one who could hear them. My friends would come over, and I'd ask them, "Listen, can't you hear that?" They'd stand there, silent, then look at me like I was crazy. "Hear what? It's dead quiet." It was maddening. The sounds were so clear to me. The clinking of glasses, muffled conversations, the bass of a song I could never quite place. I was living next to a ghost party, and I was the only one on the guest list. My grades started to slip. I was barely sleeping. The constant noise was a form of torture. One night, fueled by desperation and way too much coffee, I decided I'd had enough. I grabbed a flashlight and a heavy textbook, for courage mostly. I was going to get to the bottom of this. I stood outside room 204, my heart pounding in my chest. The familiar sounds of the party were in full swing. I took a deep breath and tried the handle. It was unlocked. The door creaked open into absolute darkness. I flicked on my flashlight, and the beam cut through the thick, dusty air. The room was completely empty. No furniture, no people, nothing. Just bare walls and a concrete floor. Dust motes danced in the light. The air was cold and stale, smelling of disuse. But the sounds were still there, louder than ever. It felt like I was standing in the middle of a crowded room, but I couldn't see a single soul. The laughter seemed to be coming from right beside my ear. I stumbled backward, my hand flying to my mouth to stifle a scream. The sounds weren't just in my head, they were in the room. I could feel the vibrations through the floor. A woman's voice whispered something, and a cold draft swept past me, slamming the door shut. I was plunged into total darkness, the party raging around me. Panic set in. I fumbled for the doorknob, my fingers shaking. The laughter grew louder, more mocking. It felt like they were all looking at me, this invisible crowd. When I finally got the door open, I didn't stop running until I was in the lobby, gasping for air under the fluorescent lights. I saw Alex at the front desk. The look on my face must have said it all. He just sighed and said, "You went in, didn't you?" I nodded, unable to speak. He told me the story then. Years ago, a group of students had lived in that room. There was a fire during a party they were throwing. A tragic accident. None of them made it out. Ever since, he explained, students assigned to my room 203 would report the same thing. Phantom parties, music, laughter. Most of them requested a room change within the first month. The university had stopped assigning anyone to room 204, hoping it would help. But the ghosts of that party, it seemed, didn't care if the room was occupied or not. They were stuck, reliving their last night over and over again. I moved out the next day. I couldn't spend another night next to that room. I transferred to a different dorm on the other side of campus. It was quiet, almost too quiet. Sometimes in the dead of night I think I can still hear the faint thumping of a bass line, a distant echo of laughter. Or maybe it's just my imagination. But I never walked down that hallway again. Some doors are best left unopened, and some parties are best left to their ghostly guests. Thanks for listening, and if you have a creepy story of your own, share it in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more chills. Stay safe out there. The open road always felt like freedom to me. Me, my best friend Liam, and my girlfriend Chloe had been planning this cross-country trip for months, a final adventure before college split us up. We packed my beat-up sedan with snacks, mixtapes, and a questionable sense of direction. The plan was simple: drive west, see the sights, and make memories. We had a paper map, a real old-school one, just for the nostalgia of it, and that map is what led us into the nightmare. We were somewhere deep in the desolate plains of the Midwest, miles from any major highway. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and blood red. That's when the car started sputtering. A classic horror movie setup, right? We laughed about it at first. Liam banged on the dashboard. Chloe checked her phone. No signal, of course. We were stranded. Just as real panic started to set in, I saw it. A faint glimmer of light off in the distance. A town. I pulled out the map. According to it, the nearest town was at least 50 miles away. This place. It wasn't on there, not even a tiny dot. But the lights were real, and we were out of options. We decided to walk. The air grew cold fast, and an unsettling silence fell over us. The kind of quiet that feels heavy, like it's pressing in on you. After what felt like an eternity, we reached the town's edge. A weathered wooden sign read, "Welcome to Harmony Creek." It looked like a place frozen in the 1950s. The buildings were pristine, the lawns perfectly manicured, but there was something off. There were no cars, no signs of life, just an eerie, perfect stillness. The houses were all identical, painted in pastel colors. We cautiously walked down the main street, our footsteps echoing unnervingly. The lights were on in every house, casting a warm glow onto the empty streets. We knocked on the first door. No answer. We tried the next and the next. Nothing. It was a ghost town, but a perfectly preserved one. We found our way to what looked like a town diner. The sign above it flickered, spelling out The Friendly Fork. Inside, the tables were set. Plates of food, half-eaten, sat on the tables. Steam was still rising from a coffee cup. It was like everyone had just vanished mid-meal. That's when Chloe screamed. She was pointing at the wall, at a collection of framed photographs. Town picnics, Founders' Day parades. In every single photo, the faces were the same. The same group of about 50 people, never aging, appearing in photos that spanned decades. And in the most recent photo, dated just last year, we saw them, standing at the edge of the crowd, looking confused. A young couple and their friend. They were wearing modern clothes, just like us. They were the last people who must have stumbled into this place. We ran. We didn't look back. We sprinted through the silent streets, the feeling of unseen eyes watching our every move. We didn't stop until we reached my car, which impossibly started right up. We peeled out of there, and I swear, as I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw figures standing at the edge of town, their silhouettes dark against the rising sun. We never spoke of Harmony Creek again. I threw that map away, but sometimes when I close my eyes, I still see those empty houses and the smiling, unchanging faces in the photographs. And I wonder, are we in their next picture?
College was expensive, so I picked up a babysitting gig for some extra cash. The family lived in this huge old house at the end of a long, winding road. A little cliché, I know, but the pay was too good to pass up. The parents, Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, seemed nice enough. Overly nice, maybe. They gave me a quick tour, showed me where everything was, and introduced me to their 7-year-old son, Leo. Leo was a quiet kid, sitting in the corner of his room, building a city out of Legos. He didn't even look up when his parents said their goodbyes. The moment the front door clicked shut, though, he stopped what he was doing and looked right at me. His eyes were wide and serious. He whispered, "Don't trust them." I kind of laughed, thinking it was just a kid's game. "Don't trust who, your parents?" I asked, playing along. He just nodded slowly, his expression never changing, before turning back to his Legos. It was weird, but I brushed it off. Kids say strange things. For the next couple of hours, everything was normal. We played some board games, I made him a snack, and he seemed like a regular, happy kid. But then, as I was getting him ready for bed, he grabbed my arm. "They're not my real parents," he said, his voice trembling. "They look like them, but they're not." Now, I was starting to feel a chill run down my spine. This wasn't a game. He was genuinely terrified. He told me his real parents would never forget his bedtime story. The Harrisons had rushed out without even saying goodnight to him properly. He begged me not to let them back in when they came home. He said they had wrong eyes. I tried to calm him down, telling him he just had a bad dream, but he wouldn't let it go. He pointed to a family portrait on the wall. "See?" he said. "Mommy's eyes are green. Her eyes are brown now." I looked at the photo, and then I remembered Mrs. Harrison's face when she left. He was right. In the photo, her eyes were a bright, clear green, but the woman I met had dark brown eyes. My heart started pounding. It could be contacts, right? Or just the lighting. I was trying to rationalize it, but Leo's fear was contagious. Then, I heard a car pull into the driveway. Leo's face went pale. He scrambled under his bed, pulling the covers down to hide himself. "Please don't open the door," he whimpered. I was frozen. My mind was racing. Was this a prank? Was I losing my mind? The doorbell rang, a long, drawn-out chime that echoed through the silent house. I crept to the peephole. It was them. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, smiling on the doorstep. But as I looked closer, I saw what Leo meant. Their smiles didn't reach their eyes. Their eyes were empty. I backed away from the door, my phone shaking in my hand as I dialed 911. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time, followed by a loud knock. I ran back to Leo's room, locked the door, and whispered to him that help was on the way. We could hear them trying the doorknob. Then their voices, sweet and melodic, calling my name, asking if everything was okay. But there was an edge to their tone that was anything but sweet. It was predatory. We stayed huddled under the bed, listening to the sounds of them trying to get into the house, until we heard the blessed sound of sirens in the distance. I've never babysat again. Sometimes I still wake up in a cold sweat, thinking about those wrong, empty eyes. Thanks for listening to my story. If you have a creepy story of your own, share it in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more.